888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Again, pretty broad tablet. We'll take your calls on anything that's been in the news over the course of this week. Let me just kind of close the loop on this McDaniel issue. One of the sort of unseemly parts of this campaign are these robocalls and these flyers that were produced at the tail end of the campaign, specifically designed to turn out liberal Democrats to vote against a conservative Republican. Now, people are out there just bloviating about how they're expanding the base, and this is wonderful. Isn't this a remarkable breakthrough the Republicans have out there getting Democrats to vote for Republicans? Do not let them lie to you. This was not liberal Democrats voting for a Republican. These were liberal Democrats voting against a conservative. Do not forget, when these liberal Democrats went to the polls, there was no Democrat on the ballot. They weren't choosing a Republican over a Democrat. They were choosing a moderate Republican over a conservative Republican. So don't let them lie to you that this somehow is expanding the Republican base, and this is a major breakthrough, getting liberal Democrats, black Democrats, to vote for the Republican candidate. Now, here is a piece from the Daily Caller. There's a companion piece from the National Review Online. I want to take a minute to go over some of the information in these columns. It has to do with these robocalls and these flyers. Remember, these flyers and these robocalls accused Chris McDaniel and accused the Tea Party of being racist and virtually being KKKers. Essentially made Chris McDaniel out to be a hooded Grand Kleagle in the KKK and pictured the Tea Party. You can almost picture the Tea Party with their white hoods and the burning crosses. I mean, that's the image that they were painting in these robocalls designed to make black Mississippians think that the Tea Party and Chris McDaniel were going to take them back to the days of slavery. That's the impression that was created. So the question then becomes, who paid for these robocalls? Where did they come from? Who was behind it? I mean, Senator Cochran said these calls were so bad, they were so racist in nature, that Senator Cochran said he thought this was a McDaniel stunt. He thought that the McDaniel campaign had pulled this off as a stunt. They were so bad. But here is the Daily Caller, a group that supported Republican Mississippi Senator Thad Cochran in his reelection bid against State Senator Chris McDaniel, paid a controversial political consultant $44,000 to conduct political phone calls. So we now know where the source of the funds for these robocalls came. It came from this group that supported Senator Cochran. Who is this group? Paragraph 2, Henry Barbour, the head of Mississippi Conservatives PAC and the nephew of former Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour, confirmed for the D.C., the Daily Caller, that the PAC paid Mitzi Bickers to make paid calls to potential Cochran supporters. So this Mitzi Bickers now is being paid $44,000 by a PAC controlled by Haley Barbour, run by Henry Barbour, to make a fellow Republican, Chris McDaniel, and his supporters look like knuckle-dragging, racist, slave supporter KKKers. I mean, that's how bad this thing is. Now, Bickers is the former head of the Atlanta School Board and a pastor at Emmanuel Baptist Church. She's also openly gay, by the way. She is also a political operative who got into trouble last year after she failed to disclose a vast sum of income she earned working on campaigns. So she worked on campaigns. She made a lot of money. She didn't report it under penalty of perjury. And she wound up having to step down from her position. I think she was working for the mayor of Atlanta at the time, Kasim Reed. So anyway, this Mississippi Conservatives PAC, run by Haley Barbour, managed by his nephew, Henry Barbour, and there are documentation here. The Sunlight Foundation, which tracks political spending, gone to FEC reports to identify that $44,000 had been given to two, I don't know what you call them, groups operated by Bickers, the Bickers Group and Pirouette Strategies, $44,000 between the two of them for get out the vote phone services. You know, we've still got that issue that's still hanging out there with this young woman, 18 years old. She says somebody hacked into my cell phone and was using my cell phone to make some of these phone calls because people were calling me. Why are you calling me to try to paint Chris McDaniel as a racist? Why are you calling me to try to paint the Tea Party as a racist? She says, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't have anything to do with it. So her phone number had been hacked and used to send out some of these phone calls. We still don't know the details behind that. Last year, as an aide to Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed, Bickers was forced to change her financial disclosure forms after WSB-TV2 discovered that she had failed to report over $500,000 she had earned on political campaign work she did in 2012. She eventually had to resign her position, and failure to disclose that information is under penalty of perjury. In other words, she could have gone to jail for what she did. Now, Eliana Johnson on National Review Online has another profile of this Bickers, who is described as a scandal-plagued Democratic operative working the black vote for Cochran. That is the headline. Eliana Johnson says, meet what appears to be one of the keys to Thad Cochran's black turnout operation, Mitzi Bickers. She is, from all appearances, something of a Renaissance woman. She is not only the pastor of Atlanta's Emmanuel Baptist Church, but also a former president of the Atlanta School Board, a former construction company executive, and a Democratic staffer and political strategist with a checkered past. And then she refers to the fact she had to resign from Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed's staff after she committed perjury by not disclosing these vast sums, $500,000 she made, and didn't report it. So Eliana Johnson goes on to talk about the work that was done by the Bickers Group and the Pirouette Company to make these phone calls, $44,000. Documents filed with the Federal Election Commission show that Mississippi conservatives, the Political Action Committee run by former Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour's nephew, Henry, paid the groups a total of $44,000 for get out the vote phone services. And turnout in these primarily black Democratic counties increased by 40%, again, as a result of this get out the vote effort. So again, let's see. Bickers would not return phone calls that were left for her at her church. And I want to read an excerpt, if I can find my column here, from the Daily Caller, conversation with Henry Barbour, Daily Caller breaking this story. And they contacted Henry Barbour, not Haley Barbour. I'm not exactly sure of Haley Barbour's connection to this PAC, conservative, Mississippi Conservatives PAC. It's kind of part of his lobbying empire, but it's actually being run by his nephew, Henry Barbour, so I want to make sure that that is clear. This is Daily Caller. Henry Barbour, the head of Mississippi Conservatives PAC and the nephew of former Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour, confirmed for the Daily Caller that the PAC paid Mitzi Bickers to, quote, make paid calls to potential Cochran supporters. Those would be liberal black Democrats in the Delta. Barbour said he was not sure about the contents of Bickers' calls. These are the ones that accused Senator McDaniel of somebody who did not like President Obama because he was black and was going to go to Washington, D.C. and to make more trouble for President Obama just because he was black. That was the innuendo of the phone call. Barbour denied that she was involved in those particular robocalls. So Henry Barbour says, look, yeah, we paid her, but I don't think she had anything to do with those robocalls. Well, the question then is, well, what other robocalls were there? You paid her $44,000 for robocalls. If these weren't the robocalls, then what are the robocalls that you paid her to make? Where are they? Can we listen to them? So right away, that doesn't sounds a little thin. She and I talked message for calls, but I never heard them. Well, then how does he know? Then how does he know that these calls didn't come from her? Because I never heard them. And then, this is interesting, while Barbour initially told the D.C. that he thought the robocalls were created by Bickers, he later said she told him that she was not. Frankly, I thought it sounded like her voice, but she says not so. So now he's saying, yeah, I did, as a matter of fact, hear the robocalls, and I thought it was her. Sounded like her voice, but then I asked her about it, she denied it, and I believe her. So all of that looking a little sketchy. Number to call if you want to join our conversation, free for all Friday, is 888-589-8840. John Fund, a very sober political analysis for National Review Online. Again, that number is 888-589-8840. Here's what John Fund says about this mess in Mississippi. How far did the establishment GOP forces backing Senator Thad Cochran go in Mississippi this week? Too far, and their tactics are likely to leave permanent scars in a civil war with Tea Party forces that are all out of proportion to the importance the establishment placed on saving one 76-year-old senator's ability to please Washington's K Street lobbying interest. So John Fund is saying, look, this wasn't about Mississippi, saying the same thing I told you yesterday. This wasn't about Mississippi. This whole thing wasn't about what's best for Mississippi. This whole election was about what is best for K Street lobbyists. All of this effort, all of this energy, all of this money spent not to do what's best for the state of Mississippi, but to do what's best for K Street lobbyists and keep money flowing into their businesses. This is a win for the establishment, said Craig Shirley, a Reagan biographer, but it's a win with an asterisk because it's so tainted that it might be one of those things where they're going to be sorry they ever won the runoff in Mississippi. And then he ends it this way with a quote from Richard Viguerie. What happened yesterday in Mississippi will resonate for years to come. It will become the battle cry, just like the Alamo. This is the Tea Party battle cry. We will remember Mississippi. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 2.
For 2,000 years, Jesus has been judged by how well his followers have imitated him. And sometimes they've made a terrible mess. Even the best of his followers has lived the lifestyle of Jesus imperfectly. And that's given people a reason not to follow Jesus themselves. You may be one of those. You've seen the hypocrites and the confusing divisions. There have been so many wrongs committed in the name of Christ. You may have been personally wounded by a Christian. But none of that was from Jesus. Jesus said, "Follow me." He didn't say, "Follow my followers, my leaders, or my religion."